Now please welcome back Bob, who is joined by the distinguished panel to discuss the topic of empowering energy efficiency.
Thank you.
Paula Glover, President of Alliance to Save Energy. Steve Nadel, Executive Director of the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. Rose Stephan Booker, Director of State Mobilization with the Building Decarbonization Coalition, and Jamal Lewis, Director for State and Local Policy for the Mid-Atlantic and South with Rewiring America. Bob?
Why don't we start by going just briefly, kind of introing yourself and also your group's mission.
Okay, sure. So I'll start.
You start.
So good morning. My name is Paula Glover. I'm the president of the Alliance to Save Energy, and we are a bipartisan coalition of business, environmental organizations, academia, government, and others who are really just interested in federal advocacy around energy efficiency policy.
Steve?
Yes. I'm Steve Nadel. I'm the Executive Director at the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, ACAAA. We are a research, education, and policy organization that works throughout the country, state, local level, as well as nationally, on technologies, programs, and policies to save energy.
Hi, good morning. Rose Stephan Booker. I'm the Director of State Mobilization with the Building Decarbonization Coalition. We are charting a course to eliminate fossil fuels from buildings. We do that in a multi-pronged approach using policy, market transformation, consumer engagement, and we even have an in-house chef who goes around and teaches other chefs how to talk about really cool kitchen efficient products.
Yeah, I'm Jamal Lewis. I'm Director of State and Local Policy for the Mid-Atlantic and South at Rewiring America. We are dedicated to improving the consumer experience, making it as easy as possible for consumers to choose the best possible machines on the market. Our homes.rewiringamerica.org website is a one-stop shop, helping consumers navigate and understand the incentives that could be available to them, as well as helping to educate consumers on why electric is better, more affordable, and more efficient.
Speaking of efficiency, your group has a state energy efficiency calculator. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so when the Inflation Reduction Act passed last year, we launched our Inflation Reduction Act Savings Calculator. The IRA has a plethora of incentives for consumers. You heard Carla earlier talk about that, to help consumers improve the quality of their lives. Our calculator is dedicated to ensuring that consumers understand what could be available to them and help them navigate that web of incentives. So we launched that last year, and since then it's been used over 600,000 times. And just last week we launched a 2.0 version, a pilot in the state of Rhode Island, also tying in state and local incentives that could be available for Rhode Islanders.
Paula, you mentioned your group is bipartisan.
Yes.
How hard is that nowadays?
I guess it depends on what you're working on.
Okay.
I would say, we at the Alliance are blessed. We have an honorary board of advisors that's bipartisan, bicameral. They have been in existence for more than 45 years. So I think from our perspective, it works really well. It's harder, and it takes longer. But I would argue it's also far more sustainable and long-lasting when you take that kind of time. And so, we're committed to efficiency and doing it in that way, trying to bring others along and really find collaboration and agreement with our solutions.
But as a follow-up, because in Washington you don't see a lot of bipartisanship, but outside the Beltway, is there more than most people would think?
I think yes, but I also think that there's probably more than people think in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just depends on the issue,
right,
and who you're talking to and how you're talking about it and when you're talking about it. All of those things I think matter. And so I think people would be surprised at the federal level that bipartisanship still does exist around issues, as well as at the state and local level.
Steve, energy efficiency can be overlooked as an overall strategy. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
It's not quite as visible generally. It's insulation in the walls. It's efficient appliances or efficient lights that people don't stare at. It's not like a solar collector or something. But it's working day in and day out, particularly when the weather is really cold or really hot. It's absolutely essential.
Rose, regarding states, Washington is very focused on federal policy making, but there's a lot of activity in the states. Are there states that you think are leading the way that should be viewed as an example for others?
Well, there are many states that have already been doing a lot of work on energy efficiency and fighting climate change at large. The Building Decarbonization Coalition has worked hand in hand with the state of California. We're also doing a lot of work in New York, and those two coastal states have certainly led the way, as all of us know. But we are trying to turn our focus on other states who are trying to chart pathways and models to help consumers save money, save energy, and put really efficient products into their home to make it safer and healthier.
I have to ask you to elaborate on the chef.
Oh,
So
yeah.
How did that come about?
Yeah, we are so excited and privileged and honored to have a chef in-house. We learned through some polling that consumers really do see chefs at the restaurant or, the cooks in the home, in the heart of the house, the kitchen, as the trustworthy source of information. And so we said, well, why not bring one in-house to tell us how to talk about food, how to connect, because we all connect around the dinner table. We all connect around, I would say, our kitchen islands. So our chef, Rochelle, she goes around, she encourages other chefs to talk about specifically induction cooking and how that can be really safe and healthy for homes, particularly families that suffer from asthma, as well as really efficient and really saving the family money and time. I've got a toddler at home. I have saved myself many toddler meltdowns by the fact that I can boil my water really, really quickly with an induction cooktop. And so you guys might not be able to see it, but I wear my Supermom cape in the back. And, induction cooktop has really helped me on that one.
Jamal, takeaways, and I want to go down the line here on COP28. It was some intense negotiations.
Yeah, so it's really great to see the commitments to double energy efficiency and to also scale up renewable energy development and installation. I think it was also really great I think it was also notable that one of the phrases that was included in the pledge was a commitment to transition away from fossil fuels in our energy system in a just, orderly, and equitable way. And I think it's really important as we are talking about energy efficiency that we recognize that electrification is energy efficiency. It's the transition to highly efficient electric technologies that result in savings.
Steve, your take on COP28?
Yes, I was very happy to see the fossil fuel transition beginning, but I was particularly excited by doubling energy efficiency. We really need that. ACEEE finds that energy efficiency can get us halfway to the Paris Pledge to total decarbonization. It's very good that it looks like this year U.S. will have hit the 4% mark. That was partly due to IRA and other programs, partly due to weather. We need to hit that mark each and every year, so we're really going to have to do even more to keep hitting that pledge. And I'm glad that they pledged it, and we, and I imagine everybody else here, will try to hold the U.S. accountable for that pledge.
Paula, is the pledge enough?
Yeah, I think the pledge is really the right first step, and then it's about the work. And I think to Steve's point, weather has a lot to do with how successful we are right now, and so we do need to really keep our eye on the ball if we're talking about doubling efficiency. I had the pleasure of being at COP, and so originally it was actually doubling efficiency year over year. Mm-hmm. A little bit of that got lost, so now we're just doubling, but I think we do have to be really, really focused on this. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would add is that we talk a lot about the rebates and the money that's coming out of DOE, incredibly important. I don't want us to lose sight of what's happening at EPA with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And the fact that efficiency is named an enabling technology before you do solar and other things is actually equally important. That's $27 billion. And so we don't want to forget about that level of investment that's coming out.
Rose, your thoughts, analysis coming out of COP?
As someone who's also been at COP, incremental steps. We all know that sitting up here with the energy efficiency movement, but I've seen the transformative power of this movement. And so cop by cop, we'll see more and more pledges, more and more, I would say, activated goals and objectives to really bring us forward and really fight climate change.
This is for anybody who wants to take it, but I want to talk about the private sector and the role it plays when it comes to new technologies, which obviously in every event we have, we're always talking about AI in the future, and that scares some people, but there's a lot of promise there as well. Anyone want to take that, the role of the private sector and how it intersects with obviously government regulators?
Sure, I'll start.
Go ahead.
I can go.
So, private sector is extremely important. I want to just highlight the fact that the Department of Energy, and we heard Carla earlier, put out $169 million in resources through the Defense Production Act to accelerate the deployment of heat pumps. And what that tells us, what that tells me, is that even though we already have highly efficient technologies, we're continuing to innovate and continuing to find more ways to be more effective, which is ultimately going to help us achieve these goals that we're setting out.
Yeah, I'd also like to add, we've seen the power of public and private partnerships for many years. Our wonderful friends, Samsung, they are partners with the EPA's Energy Star program, which is a really powerful brand that encourages consumers to purchase energy efficient products. I'm really proud to say that we've worked with Samsung for many years, and we're going to continue to do so because they are part of the market transformation. They know the consumers that are out there and what they want and how to talk to them. And so in partnership with successful brands like Energy Star, with successful brands like Samsung, and with our work and relationships with states and federal governments, we're doing this together. It's a really great, I would say, synergy moment for us.
Yeah, I would add, we really, the private sector is essential. Government is kind of the icing or the pump priming, if you will, but most of the capital is going to have to come from the private sector. I'll just give one example. In the Inflation Reduction Act, there is an industrial demonstration program. There's $6 billion for advanced technologies. How do we develop the next wave of technologies, whether it's decarbonized aluminum, steel, cement, chemicals, et cetera? This will help poise the U.S. to be a leader internationally in these vital industries. When they open it up, there's about $6 billion there. They got, the proposals included more than $100 billion of private capital. Not everybody's going to win. Frankly, that's top of my list for some additional funding, but there's going to be far more private capital coming in for these new cutting-edge plants than there is government funding.
Paula, what would you like to see policymakers do next?
I think what I'd like to see policymakers do is two things. One, what are the measures that we're going to use to make sure that we are successful, and how frequently are we going to start measuring success? So it's my opinion, certainly, that if we wait until 2030, 2040, 2050 to see if the policies that we put in place today work or not, we are way too late. And so kind of understanding as we're moving through this process, what success looks like, what the markers are, in particular around the priorities around our community benefit plans. And so these plans that have now been funded, are they working the way that we think they are? And how do we need to pivot? I think we need to prioritize that. And then I think to the larger point, right, this is about public and private partnership. This is not something that I think the government taxpayer dollars can spend its way out of. But it can certainly help create opportunities for lots of people. And so in our sense of urgency around climate, we also, I think, have to take the time to make sure that we are bringing people along. And we're bringing all communities along, and that we recognize that the infrastructure in every community is not the same. And so that there are communities today that are ready to go with all the technology that Samsung has to offer and others, and we want to see that rapid adoption. At the same time that we see that, we also want to see us investing what we need to so that those communities that are going to take a little bit more time, they're ready to go, right, in 3 to 5 years. And so I think those two things at the same time.
Jamal, where are we on environmental justice? It's a huge issue. It's only going to become bigger in the decades ahead.
Environmental justice is you're right, is a huge issue. There are communities across the world, across the country, that are disproportionately impacted by climate change disproportionately impacted by other societal issues. Fortunately, the administration has a Justice 40 initiative, which is dedicated to ensuring that investments go to those communities that are more impacted. And I think that's really important. But now, to the point that was just made by Paula, it's really important that we are sort of taking the steps from the infrastructure law, from the Inflation Reduction Act, those investments, and taking it to the next level to ensure that everyone has access to them. And I think it's going to take really intentional effort that we're seeing, from the folks up here, that we're seeing from the federal government, and we at Rewiring America are dedicated to seeing that happen.
Rose, where would you like to see policymakers go? Because obviously everyone in this space, whether it's big agreements like the one in Dubai or the Inflation Reduction Act, but there is really no finish line.
Yeah, I would love policymakers to square in on the fact that we need to make these products, these efforts, this money accessible and equitable. And I think we say those words all the time, but we really forget what that means. That means bringing people from behind to the starting line. That means investing more money and more time and more resources to helping folks who have never had these opportunities in the past. And I just want us to square in on that and work together to make sure that we are helping all people, all communities, and bringing people to the starting line.
Steve, I'll give you the last word. We've got about a minute left.
Okay, no, I'll just pick up on that. Yes, we have to help all communities. I'm very happy that DOE has decided that 40% of the home energy rebates needs to be in low-income communities, another 10% in multifamily. Multifamily is particularly challenging. How do we really make sure that these funds help all communities? And I also think we need more attention to fence line communities. Environmental justice originally was based on pollution and the fact that a lot of these communities are right next to polluting factories and they have health problems. How can we use this to really focus much more on fence line communities, which tend to also be low-income communities?
That 20 minutes went very fast. Please thank our expert panel for joining us this morning. Thank you so much.